It's time for Washington Shellfish Quest.
This episode, South Hood, South Sound two-step. Hey Washington Fish Questers, Blake here. I just rolled into the Lillawop Tidelands, and we're going to let you in on a little secret, what I like to call the South Hood, South Sound two-step. I even brought my cowboy boots here. Let me explain, friends. The entrance to Hood Canal is up by Port Ludlow. So, the water comes down there. It doesn't have to go through Seattle, Tacoma, go down the Narrows, to go by Olympia, and then go up a bunch of finger channels into the South Sound. So what that does is oftentimes the tides will be about 2 hours behind in South Sound. Now, in my opinion, Hood Canal is like primo oyster territory, and South Sound is like primo steamer clam territory. So what you can do is go to Hood Canal, hit the low tide, then go to South Sound and hit the low tide. It's the perfect plan. Unless you just want to, do it all Hood Canal. But as far as I'm concerned, it's the perfect plan. I don't know if I ever talked to you folks about knives. Here's two different oyster knives that I like to use. Some of them have guards, which for someone like me who likes to stab himself all the time is probably a good thing. I think this one used to have a guard and it rusted off. So as you can see, there's kind of the narrower style of knife, and there's kind of the thicker. And there's sort of two ways to go at them, and I'll show you right now. All right, so here's Mr. Oyster. So some people go at it in the back there. In my opinion, those longer, pointier knives are better for that, to break that back hinge. I tend to go, there's usually a weak point right along here, kind of like 10 o'clock, 2 o'clock, like you're learning to drive or something like that. Usually, in that case, I actually like to use the fatter shucker, because I get it in there, then you turn it, to get the shell off. Look at that beaut. Oh yeah, where you been all my life? The limit's 18, and you have to leave the shells on the beach. However, you can gather them up and then go shuck them, somewhere on the beach. I'd recommend putting those shells back below the tide line at least, so that they can reseed. As iconic as the Pacific oyster is to our shores now, it is not native. And in fact, in some parts of the world, it's considered an invasive pest. So it actually comes from Japan, where it was cultivated for hundreds of years. We purposely seeded it in Washington in the 1920s, I think largely to replace the Olympia oyster, which due to pollution saw severe declines. Everyone has their own oyster preferences. I actually like them about in the 3-inch range, 3.5-inch range, so not much over the legal minimum. Some people like a bigger oyster, To me, there's just a little bit of a delicacy to them when they're that small. All right, I've eaten a few on the beach. I need to just start shucking some to take home. I'm just reducing my limit every time I eat one on the beach like that. A little shore crab coming out to get a sneak peek of the episode here. Don't worry, buddy. I'll have it posted in a couple weeks. All right, let's shuck an oyster, everybody. Something going right. Oh, let's see if it bleeds. Oh, there we go. Now we're really oystering. All right. There we go. Then once you got it popped off there, you want to cut the abductor muscle. There we go. Oh, look at that. Now we just scrape it in there with all his friends. So to me, that's like a perfect oyster. It's 3 inches long. Look at that. What a beauty. That is a limit. Well, we did it. Best get to two-stepping. Woo! All right, now for the scary story part of the show. Just kidding. This trial is just for the steamer clams. At any rate, we're at the Bay Shore Preserve here, the Oakland Bay Recreational Area, it looks like it's actually called. I call it Bay Shore because there's a golf course called the Bay Shore Golf Course right over here. It's been bought out by a nonprofit called the Capital Land Trust, and they're kind of returning it to nature. There is a creek there called Johns Creek that chum run up, as do cutthroat, sea run cutthroat trout, and anglers target them both. This is a lovely little trail too to get down to the clam grounds. Far away zoom over there on Mr. Blue Heron. All right, so the last time I was down here, I didn't talk about my implements or instruments. my tools of the trade, as it were. So, you know, you can use a little garden trowel here to, you know, go like this for the manillas. You know, you feel them better that way because your hand is so close to the prongs. However, I tend to use this, just a rake, because be sure you use one you don't mind it gets like super rusty. But because you just don't have to bend down, you won't feel the clams as much, but you'll see them. And hey, if you forget either of these things, you got your mitts.
I didn't remember the oyster resources on this beach being so strong, but there's a lot of oysters there. You could easily get a limit.
Whew, I remembered it was muddy out here, but I forgot how muddy. I'm going to be quite a muddy fellow when I'm done here. So in the video I did here 9 years ago, I said, you know, I need to be 1.5 inches across and talked about how there is a measurer on a crab gauge. And I also said in the video, when text below, I said, or just I am. So don't listen to past Blake, because Fish and Wildlife has gotten really on top of making sure you do have a gauge so people don't just I am. So that's what this hole is here on the crab gauge. It's 1.5 inches across, and the clam just has to not pass through it at its widest point. So, you know, you can have it like that. This one is so muddy. So this one's a keeper, just barely. Doop, doop, doop.
No!
Alright, after moving to the much better spot a little further down, a limit was quite easy to get. So I'm going to go rinse these guys off. We'll do an exit tro. Alright, side quest time. We're going to walk to historic Johns Creek, which, as I've mentioned, has a pretty nice chum run, wild chum run, and also has coastal cutthroat trout that spawn in it. The beautiful trails they got here, all thanks to the Capital Land Trust.
And hey, you know, as a angler, you gotta love this. A land trust that actually has the little, you know, says this way to fishing.
So a really rare and really cool type of habitat is this South Sound Prairie, it's called. I believe it's called that anyway. And it's my understanding that something like 1% of it's left from its native range, because, you know, when you settle in an area, you look for that like flat ground, you know, that untreed ground that you can just build on. So there isn't a whole lot of it left, you know. Like my Mounds is another example, and it probably didn't get fully built up just because it's so dang moundy. But this is a great example of South Sound Prairie habitat, which, like I said, is dang near extinct. So wonderful that they could preserve this for future generations.
There's Johns Creek there to the left. I was going to do a dramatic pan in, but my camera is so muddy I cannot zoom in no more.
So first, you gotta scrub the clams clean and go ahead and have them purge. So that's because you eat the steamer clams whole versus like a razor clam that you gut. They need to actually dispel any of the sand in their gut. So how I do that is take a gallon of water, 1/3 cup of salt, and I put in the clams. And then people do it differently. Some people put in flour, some people put in nothing. I like to put in, I don't really have an exact measurement for this, but some cornmeal. And then theoretically that's supposed to kind of replace the sand in their stomach. Some people say it irritates them. I don't know if that's true or not, you know, and then they barf out the sand. I think it's more likely they just swap one for the other. So you want to leave them in there for at least half an hour. Some people will do that for 2 rounds. You know, I'll probably leave them in for 45 minutes in the salty water with the cornmeal. And that should have them good and purged. Those clams are finishing up their purge. No, they're not watching the movie The Purge. They're dispelling sand. Dang it, I should have used that joke right up front. Oh well. Well, at any rate, the butter is melting in the pan. I'm not sure how much, maybe about 2 teaspoons, we'll say. You'll see a stain in the middle of the pan. That is historic. That's not from this butter, if that makes sense. It's not burnt. All right, now I'm going to add a couple cloves of freshly chopped garlic. And it's going to saute in the butter there. When the garlic's infused with the butter enough, go ahead and add about a cup of white wine. There we go. We're going to go ahead and bring that to a boil. All right, I rinsed the clams off camera, and I'm going to go ahead and dump them in. Oh dang, I thought they'd fill the pan more than that. Oh well. All right, now that it's at a simmer, I'm going to go ahead and put the lid back on and let them steam for maybe 3-4 minutes. Every couple of minutes, you just want to shimmy the pan like that to get the juices all over the clams. All right, it's been about 3 minutes. Unfortunately, I don't have any fresh lemon, so this is some lemon juice. Going to spritz it on. I don't do that at the beginning so it doesn't burn off so fast. Heck, you know what? These might only need 5 or 6 minutes. They are all opened. You want to discard any that didn't open, but every one of them opened, so it didn't have any faults in there. Right at the end, I like to take about, you can either do a teaspoon or a tablespoon and just drizzle it in some melted butter just right over the clams themselves. And again, I do that at the end so the butter doesn't kind of melt off, or what do you call it, burn off, I guess, or burn on the bottom. These ended up being on there for about 6 minutes, so I don't know, I'd say 5 to 8 minutes it takes to cook them. Like I say, I'm just going to drizzle a little freshly melted butter. That's probably not even a teaspoon. It's maybe half a teaspoon. I'll just give it that extra little kick there. I put the open steamer clams in 2 nice bowls there. I'm going to pour some of the nectar onto them. There you go. Alright, they come out looking like this. A little garnish is nice, some parsley perhaps. Unfortunately, the only green thing I have is a bunch of lettuce. So I'm not going to do that. That's fine. They eat just fine like this. You slip them up. Mmm. That was great. That one had a bit of garlic on it. Probably too much. But that was still so good. There's 2 things I can make myself sick on due to lack of control. And that is like fresh cherries, you know, like especially from like the Wenatchee area. And also steamer clams. I mean, I can just sit there with a kettle of steamers and make myself ill because I just won't stop eating. I'll just eat clam after clam. And these are that good as well. So thank you so much. See you next time on Washington Shellfish Quest.